Hi, this is Donna DeRosa of DonnaDeRosa.com and of the Facebook group Blog Your Brand. And I'm here to talk to you today about what it's like to switch hosting companies for your website and also what you need to do to get a free SSL certificate. It used to be that SSL certificates were only for big e-commerce sites, and they would have to have a dedicated IP address, and then they would have to have an expensive SSL certificate, and they usually cost about $150 a year, something like that. But now there is like a light version of an SSL certificate, I would say, that's available, and it's available for free, and you can get it through your hosting company. The reason you want to do this year is because Google is going to start penalizing websites that don't have a secure encryption. So I want to take you through the steps that I took to get a free SSL certificate on my site, and also the steps that I used to switch hosting companies. Now, my previous hosting company was GoDaddy, and I've used them for years, and I never had a problem with them. But it's very easy to use GoDaddy because that was where I reserved all my domain names, and then I just naturally moved on to their hosting plan when I was ready to put my sites live. So I had a deluxe hosting plan with GoDaddy, and it allowed me to have multiple websites, and it was the deluxe Linux hosting. There's a higher level on GoDaddy, which is the Linux hosting with cPanel, which I did not have. So I started seeing some problems on my website, some things that I was running a theme called Divi by Elegant Themes. That's what I still run. It's a very robust theme. And I started noticing that some functionality wasn't available to me because I needed to have a higher PHP level. PHP is the scripting language that runs your blog site, and it's not something that you can update yourself. It's something that your hosting company has to update. So when I was at WordCamp last year, which is the meeting of all, it's like a worldwide meeting of WordPress that happens every year. It was the second year of it. In the State of the Word address by Matt Mullenweg, who is the co-founder of WordPress, he was recommending that all websites now have an SSL certificate, and that they run on PHP 7. So I noticed that, like I said, that some of my functions weren't available to me anymore. And I also started getting some internal server 500 errors on my site. And then I would hit refresh and my site would come up fine. And I just thought it was a little odd. So I called GoDaddy and they said that I needed to have a higher level of PHP, which is funny because they don't offer a higher level of PHP for the hosting plan that I have. So I went into my hosting plan and I noticed that I was running 5.3 PHP, and they did have 5.4 available, so I immediately upgraded to that. But what I really needed was at least 5.6 because a lot of the plugins and themes and things, they all run on PHP, and they're all starting to use 5.6 or higher, and they're all actually recommending 7, but they still will work back down to 5.6. But 5.4 was a little too low for some of the things that I wanted to do. So when I called GoDaddy and asked them about that, they said that I would need to move up to the other hosting plan, the Linux with cPanel, but that I would have to physically move my files. It just wasn't a matter of saying like, okay, I'll pay for the more expensive hosting and then it would just happen. I had to physically move my files over. So I thought, if I'm going to physically move my files over, I'm going to physically move them to another hosting company and see what that's like. So I chose Siteground, and I've heard a lot of great things about them, and I have a friend who uses it who is really happy with it. So I wanted to let you know the process that I went to of moving my website to Siteground, and what were the benefits, and how I prepared for this move. So the first thing I did before I moved my files over to Siteground was I ran a complete backup of my website. And honestly, I should have done this a long time ago. It's really not good to not have your site backed up. So what I did was I was always running the free version of Jetpack by WordPress, and that's all I had ever needed at the time. But if you increase your level to the lowest paid version, which is only about $3 and something a month, it came out to $39 for the year, you get access to VaultPress, which is a service that backs up your website. So I ran VaultPress first on my site just to make sure I had a complete backup of it, and it backs up everything, all of your posts, all of your images, your themes, your plugins, everything associated with your website. So if you got hacked, or if your site crashed, or for some reason you needed to reload your website, you could completely reload your website from this VaultPress backup. So that's what I did first. And then my friend who was using Siteground had recommended that I make my site as lean as possible, because when he tried to move his site over, he had all kinds of old themes and stuff that he had tried on his website, and he still had them loaded up, and it was an awful lot of data for them to move, and they suggested that he try to reduce it. So that's what I did next. I got rid of any old themes on my site. I went through and I deleted a bunch of old draft posts that I had, because every time I write a blog post or I have an idea for a blog post, I would just create a new draft post and save it for later, and I ended up having like 100 of these or something in the background. So what I did is I moved them all out and put them in an ideas folder on my computer, and I took them out of my WordPress software itself. The next thing I did was I had uploaded a bunch of templates for that came free with my Divi theme of that people had designed, and you can upload them, and that's exactly how I made my homepage. I uploaded one of these templates, and then I swapped out the information and the images, and I made my homepage that way. But I downloaded anything that was free that was available, and they all came with these huge images that made them look beautiful and show you what the potential is for these templates, but they were all just sitting in my media folder on my WordPress blog. So what I did was go through and deleted probably more than 100 images in my media folder that I wasn't using, I didn't need, and were taking up a lot of room. So the next thing I did, well, I also did this to my pages, because in WordPress you have posts and you have pages. So I did this, got rid of all drafts and everything from posts and pages. And then I downloaded a plugin that's called WP Optimize. And what that does, it will clean up the back end of your site. So I unchecked everything, because they can use it to clean up your tables and all different kinds of things. But all I really wanted it to do was clear out my old revisions. Because when you're writing a blog post, every time you hit Save Draft in WordPress, it saves a revision. And if you're in a document for a long time, WordPress will also auto-save. And every time it does that, it creates a revision. So sometimes on some of my blog posts, I would have the live blog post, and then I would have these 30 revision files also associated with that blog post, that if I needed to, I could go back and load an earlier version of it. But when you don't need them, they're just taking up room. So the WP Optimize, you can set it to save only your 3 most recent, and then you can let it run, and it cleans out all those old revisions, and it saves a ton of space. The next thing I did was go on Siteground and choose the hosting plan that I wanted. And they had 3. They had one that was for one website, one that was for multiple websites, and then a higher level for really robust sites. And I didn't need the higher level. So the plan I bought was I think it's called Grow Big. And it allows you to have multiple websites, but I was only moving one over now. I'm probably going to move more over at a later date, but I just wanted to get my main very large website moved over there. So I bought the hosting plan. I used a referral link from my friend, so he got a couple of free months of service out of it by me using his referral code. And then you can go and choose to have them move over your site for you, and they will do it for free for one website. You can also do it yourself if you have something like a VaultPress backup. You can load it up yourself through the FTP servers, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have them do it because I just felt uncomfortable doing that. And I also wanted to know about the whole process of how this all worked. So when you ask them to move it over, it creates a service ticket, and they get back to you and they say, okay, we're doing it now, and they tell you that it's going to take a little while, and then they'll let you know when it's ready, and then you can have a look at it. So a few hours later, I got an update to the ticket that said it was ready, and I could go look at my website, and I would have to look at it. What they do is they copy all your files from your old hosting company. So they went to GoDaddy, and they copied all my files. I had to give them access to my GoDaddy account. They copied all my files over. So while this is happening, I'm still running fine on GoDaddy. They copy all your files over, and then they let you view it on their servers. They tell you 2 different ways that you can do it. So you can make sure everything is okay before you actually make the switch over. So there were 2 different ways. There was an easy way, and then one way that I thought was a little scary, but ended up not being really scary at all. So I took the easy way first, which was to go to a certain website that they suggested. I'll put it in the comments. I don't remember what it was called. It was something like, where you could put in their IP address, and you can put in your URL, and then it would show you on their servers what your site looked like, so you can check it out. So I did that first, and it looked like a lot of my images were missing. So I contacted them and said, it looks like a lot of my images didn't copy over. And they said, no, they're there. We can see them. Use the other way, which is to change your host file on your computer so you can look at a local version of it. I was a little afraid of doing that, but actually it was really easy. They give you 1 line of code. You go into where your host file is, and depending on what type of computer and browser and stuff you're using, you'd have to follow the instructions that are for you. You change this 1 line of code, you hit save, and then you can look at your website on Siteground, which I did, and it looked perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I clicked all through, and everything looked great. So then I took that line of code out and put my computer back to normal. And then I was ready. So when you're ready and you're happy with the way it looks, it's up to you to go back to your old hosting company and to go in and change your DNS file. And I know that sounds scary because I was like, I don't know what that means, but they tell you what to do. They give you these 2 web addresses for their servers, and you go into your GoDaddy file or whatever your old hosting company is, and you change your name servers, and there's 2 of them, and you just replace the 2 that they give you with the 2 that are there. You hit save. It takes a couple of minutes, and then you're running on the new hosting company. It could take, depending on what hosting company you're leaving, it could take 24 hours just for everything to go through, depending on how often they refresh their servers and look at the calls on their site. But for me, it seemed like it took a few minutes, because there's another site you can use. There's a website for everything. There's one that you can use, and I forget what it's called. I'll also put that in the comments. It's something like whoishostingthis.com or something like that. And I put my URL in that, and it said Siteground. It tells you who's the hosting company. And I was like, all right, well, it's running on Siteground. And I could also tell because it was running really, really fast, so much faster than it was before. But you're still not set up with the SSL certificate at that point. That's something you also have to do manually. So I'm running now on Siteground at this point. And then to set up the SSL certificate, you go into your cPanel, which is your control panel that comes with your account. And you go to the security section, and there's a company called Let's Encrypt, which is what they use to have their security, their certificate. So you hit the Let's Encrypt button, and it comes up, and you do 2 lines of something that you have to fill out, and you say, make me a certificate, and it does that, and it tells you when it's done. For me, I did a couple of these steps out of order, and it didn't work for me, so I called customer service right away, and they did it in like 3 minutes, and they did it for me. And then after that happens, what you need to do is they give you instructions, because once you have your SSL certificate set up, you go into your settings of your WordPress in the general section. So it's settings, general, and then you change the name of your site and the URL, and it'll say HTTP : and then the name of your site. And it says that in 2 places in a row. You change it to HTTPS in each case, and you hit save. And then generally, there's so many links throughout your site. All of your images are a link, and there's links within links for your different pages, that it's not going to resolve right away. So there's a plugin that you can use. Let me look at my notes here so I can tell you what it's called. It's called SSL Insecure Content Fixer. It's a plugin that you download, that they tell you to download, they recommend. And you just leave that on the basic setting. As soon as you upload it and you activate it, it goes through and it resolves all those instances that are not secure. In my case, it did it, and I still wasn't seeing that green padlock that you see when you have a secure server. So I went into the README files of the SSL Insecure Content Fixer, and they say it doesn't often happen like right away. So they tell you to go. There's a site you can go to. Like I said, there's a website for everything called whynopadlock.com. whynopadlock.com, and you can put your site in there, and it'll tell you what are the insecure connections on your site. And it was really just some image files on my homepage that were holding it back. So all I did was go back into my ticket on Siteground, and I told them that it wasn't doing that. And by this time it was like 12:30 at night, and so I just put the ticket out. I didn't think they were going to do anything that late at night, and I just went to bed. But apparently they have 24-hour customer service, because they did go in and fix it overnight. And when I woke up, I looked at the ticket, and my site had the green padlock, and they had resolved all of the insecure connections on my site. It was just so easy. Their customer service is amazing and really fast. So they were the steps that I had to go through. So now my site is running PHP 7, and it has an SSL certificate, so it has a secure connection. And it runs so much faster with PHP 7. It's unbelievable, and on this new hosting company. So just to recap. So I wanted to give you a recap of the steps I took. I'm going to look over at my notes here for a second so I don't miss anything. The first thing I did was clean up my content and make my site as lean as possible. And I told you the steps to go through of ways that you can make your site be a smaller amount of data that the company is moving over for you. The next thing I did was choose a hosting plan. So I chose Siteground, and I chose their middle ground plan, which was Grow Big. Then you allow them access to your servers on your old hosting company, and they copy all of your files over. Then you wait for a little bit, because that takes a little while. I mean, not like a long while. I think it was a couple of hours, because I have a pretty robust site. Then, another step that I did after I moved my site over, I configured my email because I had my email through my GoDaddy account too, and I wanted to keep the same address. So I configured my email on the Siteground site, and that just took a few minutes as well. And they have 3 choices. It's a webmail server, and then they have 3 choices of companies that you can use to use the viewer. So I did that, and that's working fine. So then you go in and you actually change the DNS files on your old server, which took about 2 seconds. Sounds scary. It was easy, super easy. Then you go and look at your site and see how it's running. And then if you want to add the SSL certificate, you go and you set up a certificate with Let's Encrypt, which is right in the Siteground control panel. And then you go into after that's set up, you go into your WordPress general settings and you change your address from HTTP to HTTPS, and you save it. And then you run the SSL Insecure Content Fixer plugin. It resolves all of the insecure connections. And then if that still didn't do it, you just let them know in a service ticket on Siteground, and they'll do it for you. And to be honest, at different points along the way, they kept telling me, if you're uncomfortable with any of this, we can do it for you. But I wanted to do it myself. So if you are uncomfortable with it, I'm sure they would do some of these steps for you so you don't have to do it. I wanted to just know how it worked and know how to do it myself. And also I wanted to know how to do it so I could tell you how to do it. So that's basically it. It sounds like a lot of steps, but I don't want you to be afraid of it because it's really not scary. You know, I'm not really a super technical back-end person, and when I hear things like change your DNS file, I panic, you know, but it was so easy. You go in and it's called DNS file and you change it, and it was just not scary at all. And you have the company backing you up, and their customer service is lightning fast, and they were really super nice. So if you're interested in all on Siteground, I got a referral code from them too, and I'm going to put it down in the description box. So if you do want to use their services, if you want to use my referral code, my affiliate link, I will get a little kickback. But if not, just go to Siteground. If you're not comfortable with that, just go to Siteground and maybe just call them and talk to them and see if they have what you need. Because like I said, Google is going to start ranking sites higher that have an SSL certificate. Even if you're not a big major e-commerce site, they're still looking for that secure connection for anyone who's collecting any kind of information on their site. And if we all have email newsletters, then you're collecting information, and you do want to have a secure connection for people so that when they're typing their data in, their personal data, that it is secure and they can feel comfortable. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions at all, please just write them down below and I will get back to you. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe. Okay, see you later. Bye.